Hello. So today on this broadcast, I'm going to be talking about a new era in education. For the most part, you might have been attending webinars or you might have been listening to podcasts about everyone being quarantined and what the issues are and things like that. Well, I want to get to practical solutions, perhaps some things that people are thinking about, but we haven't, um, you know, thoroughly seen how it applies in education or even how to get started with it. So let's move forward. Well, with the new era and the new normal, and I apologize for overusing a term, um, what we have to do is to find a way forward and a sustainable way forward. The wonderful thing about this quarantine period and this COVID 19, unfortunately, yes, people have suffered, but on the other flip side of it, you have to find a silver lining is that it exposed a lot of vulnerabilities. And one of the vulnerabilities that I noticed is technology, learning technology, a lack of it or an under utilization of it. So, first of all, let's even define what learning technology is. It's a broad range of communication information that is used to support teaching, learning, and also assessment. So, before we can even get into the different types of learning technologies, let's even define what learning is. Now, according to proven theories, yes, they said learning is the ability to attain persisting knowledge and to um, that is essentially imparted by instructors and digital resources. But you need to know that learning, the ability part, is different from learning theory. Learning theory is more about the how and the why of learning. This part changes and it evolves all the time. So you would see that research on how people learn and the ways of instructing people to learn is constantly evolving and it's adapting to whatever phenomena is current. Right now, technology is the how of of the way forward in education. Previously, it used to be face to face. It used to be chalk and board or whiteboard and pen or whatever. At this point in time, it has changed to such that we actually have to switch to digital modes of instruction and we have to move into it swiftly. Pandemics, thankfully, do not happen every year, but we we thank God that this time, it showed us what it is that we have been reluctant in the field of education to do for a long time. So let's address some simple truths first. Equality doesn't always mean sameness, and sameness does not always mean equality. So let's just take a few minutes, first of all, to marinate on just that little point right there. Because sometimes we tend to think that when things are equal, then it must mean that it is the same. Actually, this part of it is very difficult to address in a classroom, and that's because of the numbers of students that sometimes we have to address in a traditional classroom. There's usually just one teacher and maybe 28 students, and the ratio is off or it's unrealistic to begin with. Some classes have as much as 45 to 90 students, and that's not even a high school or a lecture situation. That's in a middle school situation or in an elementary school, and that is the truth in many parts of the world. So, because most traditional classrooms have to follow a set time and they have a timeline and they have a different and differentiation will require that the instructor tailors instruction for every single learner. This is the advantage of learning technologies and incorporating this into curriculum. Um, Due to these difficulties of having to tailor education for each individual learner, it means that each student will attain their milestones at different times and on different days. This makes teaching in lockstep, the traditional way of teaching in the classroom is going to be virtually impossible. So that's why we cannot go back really to what we have been doing or what we've been accustomed to doing. We have to move forward, we have to evolve because the teacher will have to keep track of so many different moving parts at the same time that effectively the teacher would not be able to meet the needs of every single learner. So it's an impossible scenario, and the teacher will have the responsibility of showing that every student has mastered the information, is able to transform, and they can progress. They can progress with the information. They can understand it, and they can engage, and they can represent their knowledge in the way that meets their needs, and to demonstrate mastery of a variety of topics. It really is very difficult to do in a traditional learning environment. So let's look at what's the next thing. The way forward here, as we said, is for us to have digital spaces. It affords differentiation, and it's possible to create more individualized education, to track and to intervene the learning process in order to adjust the content to meet the learner's needs. In these digital spaces, all learners will be able to meet their goals because the teacher can tailor the information to meet the needs of individual learners. Now, collaborative intelligence affords students to work together to engage all students in a variety of ways. So the students, though at various levels of understanding, they can learn together, building upon each other's knowledge, and this gives them an opportunity to constantly revise learning through recursive feedback. Recursive feedback, you already participate in that. If you're on any social media, somebody makes a comment and another person makes a comment, another makes a comment to yours. So kind of like what happens on Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp and things. That's what recursive feedback is. Now, you also have flipped classrooms. Those are very popular right now, and I think for good reason, because the students come to class already prepared or front loaded with the information that they're going to learn in the classroom. And so what you spend the time doing in the class as an instructor is to explore abstract ideas with the students stemming from the content and engaging their prior knowledge. And you are able to clarify, or you can extend learning rather than starting from the very, very beginning, because your students already come with a body of knowledge to the class. So the future, right, is now really. Educators need to start designing lessons with the learner in mind and not be locked into a pacing standard. The result is that teachers will expand their repertoire, they'll expand their capacity to work with others outside of their field through digital spaces and ecologies that will support the learners. So schools really need to encourage multimodal learning. Sometimes we get stuck with the basic technology that is available and the basic capabilities, so that the technologies in the classroom are completely outdated. Okay, research has proven that teachers can teach students in their technology language of today, which essentially is what it is, because we are really talking to our students in an archaic language if we do not incorporate technology into it. However, what obtains is that in most schools, they offer professional development seminars for teachers. Teachers attend 3-hour seminars. They're filled to the brim with a lot of information, but um, they have a lot of new innovative strategies and information, but they return to the same old classrooms that have the same old tools, and they cannot implement these new ideas. So how are teachers expected to facilitate new learning without the proper tools, especially when students are interacting and engaging using the very tools that the teacher has spent hours learning how to incorporate into instruction? But those tools are not allowed in schools. I mean, like, think about your policy about cell phones. Do you allow your students to use cell phones in the classroom? No, because that's usually one of the things it is that you have them check in. And then maybe you have a specific day for the students to go to the computer lab. So how are we how are we moving this machine forward if at the same time we are undercutting ourselves? So, the typical mode of instruction, let's go to the goals of instruction now. The typical mode of instruction in a traditional classroom is for the teacher to teach to the middle of the class, okay? And basically, you hope for the best. You usually put your very brightest students in the front, you have your middle students in the middle, and then you have the ones who maybe struggle or need a little extra time. Those ones are in the back. Most traditional classrooms, well, you teach in the middle because you figure the ones who are in the front, they'll get it anyway. Or maybe your class is flipped around, but that middle remains the same. The ones who struggle are probably the ones who are sitting in front. The more advanced or accelerated students are sitting in the back, and then those students who are standard or basically midway, those are the ones that you're really teaching to. So, but with personalized learning, this can happen with instructional technology. Students can learn the same material at their own pace, or as their peers, but it can be in a different way. In this scenario, the student can still participate in an interactive community, and the learner is not isolated, but they learn in a supportive environment of their peers. That's what happens in personalized learning, and this is possible with instructional technology. But then with individualized learning, you have to make a decision as to how you want to design your instruction. With individualized learning, it can be problematic because the environment can be very isolating. In this one, the learner is alone. In their pacing and learning of material. So the content is so specific to each learner that attempting to engage with others, maybe in a discussion, can be counterproductive. So you really have to weigh how it is that um, go about designing the instruction that you're going to implement. So, what is this future now phenomenon? Well, Dr. James Gee of the University of Illinois, he talks about the maker movement, which is the era in which we find ourselves essentially right now. The maker movement, according to Dr. Gee, is a generation of students who are experts at absolutely nothing, and they build upon collective intelligence. This collective intelligence relies on a network of everyday people and who are not experts. Essentially, everyone is they come together and they share um, what they know. So I mean, it's like you build on what someone else knows, and you learn as you go along. Everyone brings their own unique knowledge to this network, and it really is going to change the way that we are able to do assessments. So modern media affords a constant collection of abundant data over time, and it shows a trajectory of learning because every time you learn something new, you are able to add to your body of knowledge, and it shows a snapshot of information. So assessment at that time is just showing you a little part of what people are able to understand at that point, not the end point of learning. So these are just a few things I have to share with you. And I would just say that, if you found this useful, please, like and share. Um, Tell somebody about it. And if you would like to take a course, put your email at the bottom, or you can contact me at a Dr. Odunjo at teachertoolkitseries.com. I'll put the email up again at the bottom, or you can also send it to the email here at teachertoolkitseries@gmail.com. You can send that to me. I will be more than happy to send you some other resources that you can use. Happy learning.